Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I want to welcome everybody again. This is Joel Ryan. I'm the Executive Director of the Washington State Association of Head Start and ECAP. We are a C3 membership organization representing Head Start and ECAP providers, staff, parents, and of course, we are advocates for the children who are enrolled in the program. Tonight, we are hosting another one of our candidate forums, and we're really lucky today to have Joy Stanford, who is a candidate up in the Peninsula area. She'll tell us more about, I didn't write down the district number, but we are delighted to have her join us. Each one of these forums is about 30 minutes. We have a standard set of questions that we're asking, and then we open it up for audience members. So if there are people who are attending this, feel free to ask Joy questions. These forums are specific to young children and families. So just know that going into it. The other thing we're doing is as soon as this is over, Joy will send you a copy of this. So you can send it to whoever or do whatever you'd like with it. We also promote it on our social media page as well. So other people, even though there's not a ton of us on tonight, we'll make sure that people in your community will get a chance to watch this as well. So let's get started. And really, again, I'm delighted to have Joy Stanford, who's running for a legislative seat. And the way that we've been starting all of these forums is just simply asking you, just introduce yourself and why you decided to come to a forum around children and families. And just again, thank you and appreciation for you joining us tonight.
Sure. So I'm Joy Stanford. I'm running here in the 26th Legislative District, which encompasses on the other side of the Narrows Bridge, Gig Harbor, Key Peninsula, Olalla, Purdy, Port Orchard, and a slice of Bremerton near the OC, the Olympic College campus, on this side of the Warren Avenue Bridge. Because once you get over there, you start getting into the 23rd and the 35th. So, your invitation was, I think, pretty timely. I just had a community conversation with some families, just trying to find out how going back to school has been going for families and for kiddos, little kids on up. And so, because here in the Peninsula School District, we have our K and 1. So our kindergartners and first graders are in person, and I believe it's 4 days a week, with Wednesdays where they're at home. This past Friday, the kids were telling me Wednesdays they sleep in, so they catch up on their sleep and they catch up on their work. That's what Wednesdays is for, Miss Joy. And so I got the opportunity to have a conversation with some little kids that were just excited to tell me, I was like, well, what do you do on Wednesday? And so one little girl said, that's what we do on Wednesday. We catch up on our sleep and we catch up on our work. So I am a substitute teacher, have been for several years here in the Peninsula School District. Prior to the pandemic, I was hoping to sign up to be a substitute teacher in the South Kitsap School District, but never got a chance to, between my campaign and working part-time for a nonprofit housing agency. And then the pandemic hit, and then it was like, well, I guess they're not going to need subs anymore right now. So I hadn't had a chance to do that. But I'm hoping that I do get the opportunity to do that. I love substituting. It's just new and adventurous every day. The kids know me as Miss Joy now. A lot of the kids have had me for several years. And so much so, some of the kids now have graduated and are working in the community. And they're like, Miss Joy, do you remember me? And I'm at the grocery store and I'm like, oh, wow, I think I do. So it's kind of cool to watch them go from junior high to high school. And now they're out in our community working. So excited about that. And it's just part of my platform is education and making sure we're doing right by our kids, no matter what the age. And so I want to hear from you all. I think understanding what's happening, not just in my own district, but around the state, and making sure I'm doing what's right and helping make policy along with some great champions that you all have, and my mentor, Claire Wilson, making sure that I'm just doing right by not only my community, but everyone in the state of Washington. So.
Cool. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to Yuval, who's our MC for this evening. So, but thanks, Joy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joel. So the way these questions are going to be asked and work, and the rest of the conversation will be broken up between me and a few parents that will ask questions, and we'll go from there. So our warm-up question is, since our forum is focused on young children and families, what was your favorite children's book growing up and why?
Any Dr. Seuss book. So when I went Friday to read, I read One Vote, Two Vote, You Vote, I Vote. That's the book I read. Because I love Dr. Seuss. I was like, oh my God, there's a Dr. Seuss book about voting. So we got to understand voting, and we got to play the voting game with the kids. I played that game with them. So we were voting on how many resources we should have during COVID-19. We got up to 3. And one of my thank yous that's over there on my chair said, thank you, Ms. Joy, for giving us 3 recesses. So super excited. Any Dr. Seuss book, just because it rhymed. And I was kind of like this kid who just liked the whole musical thing. I just kind of like the rhyming thing in my head. So any Dr. Seuss book. So that, I don't know, just a thing.
No, thank you for sharing that. And so our next question will be asked by April.
Hi there.
Hi, April.
I would like to know, what is your definition of early learning?
Out of the wound? Come on. When they're in the high chair, I'm a new grandma. My youngest grandchild is 6 months old. So, you know, any learning is good learning. My son and my daughter-in-law are really sticklers to it. So, and so we went about making sure we were buying the baby things that she can look at and see and start grabbing at, and, you know, so she can start thinking about. I think talking age is always good when you can start teaching them things when they start talking. Early learning is going to be, like I said, it's going to be the earliest that you can just start talking to a child and making sure a child can recognize who you are. I love that she brightens up every time she sees me, because she knows, oh my God, it's FaceTime with Gam Gam, you know? So, and then I'm always like very animated with her. And I'm like that with kids when I sub too. I'm very animated. It's really hard to do when you have a mask on though. So I think I'm going to get a clear face shield, because I'm just this really animated person. And so I think that makes the kids really kind of know that you're there with them. And so, yeah, early learning, whenever you can start teaching a child something. I sent my kids to preschool at, I believe, 3. And so, because I was a working mom, you know, my husband and I were working. And so I wanted to make sure it was a preschool that taught him things. So it was very structured where, you know, it was numbers, it was letters, it was words, and it was always something. So each week was some sort of theme or animal or letter. And so those kind of environments, I believe children thrive in better, so.
Thank you. These are my 2 grandbabies behind me.
So cute.
Love the grandma life. It's the best. Victoria.
So I get to ask the next question, and it's wonderful to meet you. And I am Victoria, and I actually live in your district. So, and my kiddo is right here saying hello.
Okay.
But my question is, research shows that investments in comprehensive early childhood education pay off particularly for disadvantaged children and families. ECAP is a high-quality comprehensive early learning program that serves some of the most at-risk families. Do you support increasing ECAP funding? And if so, why? And if no, why not?
Absolutely. I was part of ECAP as a child. I don't know if it was called ECAP back then. For some reason, I went to Head Start, but not kindergarten. And then all of a sudden I was in 1st grade. don't understand it. My mom never could explain it to me. But I think I was a product of that. And so my Head Start was it was more like a Montessori school, and you just learned so much. And there was all these kids it was very diverse because I'm from California, so it was very diverse. I didn't know if came from a poor family, I didn't know that then, but I do understand that we have got to make sure that we are servicing those families just as much as others. And so absolutely, I support that. I would be a champion for that, to make sure. I would be a champion to make sure we're not cutting that, because if it's going to be anybody that needs that post-pandemic, it's going to be those kids and those families. And so I am well aware of that. Working in the housing nonprofit arena gives me also a chance to meet parents and meet grandparents who are raising grandchildren who are on fixed incomes, and they want the best for their kids just like anybody else. And so I've met them when they had housing instability. And so understanding that the housing instability affects a lot of what's going around them, their environment, is important. And so absolutely, I'm going to be a huge champion for that. Yes.
I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you.
And where do you live, Victoria?
I live in West Bremerton.
Okay.
Cool.
Great. Next question is about childcare. Childcare providers are some of the lowest paid workers, often making less than dog walkers and parking lot attendants. What will you do to make childcare affordable while increasing wages for providers?
I think that's going to take a lot of different folks coming together with ideas. I never understood why childcare workers were the lowest paid, first of all. I just knew it was really expensive as a single mom first, and then as just a working family trying to find affordable daycare, good, affordable, and safe daycare for my youngest son. I had my mom when I had my middle son, and so I had her and I didn't have to worry about it. But when I had Ben, Dave and I were like scrambling, like, do we sign him up when he's 2 or 1 or while I'm pregnant? And because I heard all these horror stories. And so, and then understanding that these folks that work there, who are some of the greatest people ever, and who I make sure see pictures of Ben now as a 21-year-old, because I want to make sure they know that they were a part of his story and his path, trying to understand why they are the lowest paid. I think that's going to take some programming. I think that's going to take some creative financing, because you can't put it all, like, I think my friends in Seattle, when I was working in Seattle, they were paying thousands of dollars a week for their kids or their babies to be in daycare. And it was just like, what? Like, who does that? And so it's just flabbergasting to me. So I think it's going to take some creative financing. I think it's going to take some funding sources that we've never thought about and where we can pull that from. And again, not cutting the funding that we're already putting towards that and the programs that we already have there in place. We need to make sure we are safeguarding those and securing those as we move forward and move post-pandemic, because more parents are going to need us. I'm not sure if I know the financing of how all that works, but I want to get in there and I want to learn it and understand it and be a part of making sure that we are paying those folks a livable wage, because I think that's important. I've heard that some folks want to be unionized in those places. And, I'm always for workers, but I don't want a place to shut down because they can't afford to pay their workers. But I do want folks to have a livable wage. And those are some of the most important people who are taking care of our kids. So if I can help do anything and assist with that, I will be there to do that.
Great, thank you. Victoria, I think you're up again.
Yep. Only 5% of Washington's eligible families received home visiting, and that's federal, state, and local funding. And that leaves a lot of families unserved in that area. What are your plans to support pregnant moms and families with newborn children? And maybe expand on if you're going to work towards expanding policies around like the Paid Family Leave Act, early ECAP, home visiting programs, things like that.
I would definitely jump all over that Paid Leave Act. Absolutely. That absolutely we can expand on that for folks. I don't, again, because I don't have a little kid anymore, I'm not in the mix with all of these, some of these things, but in talking to my mentors like Claire Wilson and other folks, other champions that you guys have, they seem to be doing it right and working it right and making these policies that really connect with what you all need and what families need and what children need. And I think that's going to be my job, is to make sure that I understand, for people like you, Victoria, here in my district, what do you need? I know we need affordable daycare here in the 26, particularly out in the rural areas of Port Orchard and the Key Peninsula. I believe there's more childcare available in Bremerton. If I'm wrong, correct me. You're like, yeah, see. So, but how can we make sure that we've got affordable care out there for those folks? And like I said, I just want to get in there and make sure that I'm helping build that policy that's going to aid our families and aid our workers at the same time and be valuable to both. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question has a lot to do with housing. Prior to COVID-19, 1 in 11 children were homeless. And due to the pandemic, we have seen an increase in homeless children and families. So my question is, what will you do to ensure children have a safe and stable housing?
I'm one of the founders of the Gig Harbor Key Peninsula Homeless Coalition. And one of our partners or providers that works with us is the Harbor Hope Center here in the Gig Harbor area. And they just opened a house for girls. They have a house for boys. That's youth. But they're talking about doing a house for single moms. And I came from a program where I shared housing with another single mom. And we were matched up together to share housing. That is one of my goals, is to make sure that Shared Housing Services has a footprint over here on this side of the water, whether it's Kitsap, whether it's Pierce, making sure we've got a footprint and making sure people know that that is an option. We can pair people up to share housing, which is a win-win situation for both families, because it just makes it affordable. And then making sure that we know and we are in tight communication through the school district or whomever, whatever provider we can, all those families that are in need are on that housing bubble or having housing instability. Again, another partner is the Children's Home Society out here on the Key Peninsula, making sure that we know who are the families that are having those moments. They know they can call me, even though I'm laid off from my job now. They know they can call and say, Joy, who do we call at Shared Housing? And I'll say, call Julianne, because that's who's going to help you. That's who's going to try to help the mom, match that mom up with maybe another mom. We don't normally do families at Shared Housing. It's usually adults, single adults. But we've had situations where we've had two, a single mom say, hey, I've got a room. If you've got another single mom with a girl or a boy ages 2 to 4 or 4 to 7, please, I'd love to have someone come live with me. And we've matched folks up that way. So that's just an option that I want to make sure people know about. And my partners out here with the Gig Harbor at Key Peninsula Homeless Coalition, we are trying to work that so that we can match folks up. So we don't have any kids that are sleeping in cars, because we have families right here in Gig Harbor sleeping in cars. So yeah.
Thank you. Victoria?
So my question is, what will you do to ensure every child has access to the best available medical and mental health and dental care available?
Well, certainly not vote against bills that come out that are helpful for that. So that's number one. Number two, I used to manage some dental offices, so I know how valuable dentistry is. I know how important it is to the all-around holistic health of a person and a child. So my thinking when building policy is you're starting with the top of the head to the bottom of the feet. It's all one whole body. That's mental health, that's vision, that's hearing, that's dental, that's the entire body. And so if you build policy that includes all of those things, we're going to have a much healthier generation of kids. And so my hope is that that's the type of policy that myself and others that are progressive candidates that are coming along are going to be building on what has already been started by all of our champions that are there. But we are building on that with better policy, and just making sure. Here in my district, we need to pass the 1/10 of 1% for mental health. I'm a big proponent of that. I'm like, come on, we need to pass this, people. And so let's get it back on the ballot. Let's get Pierce County to the table. Let's talk about this. Let's get it passed. Let's get it done. We've done it in Kitsap. They've broken ground on a permanent supportive housing that I'm told will have single adults as well as single parents in their 70 units. I think 35 are one bedroom and 35 are studios. And so I'm hoping to see another project once that's finished, another project that might be centered around families. And we'll have all of those services, because when you have that permanent supportive housing, you have all those services. You have mental health, you have job training available and job search assistance available. You have mental health people assistance for folks. And then just getting back on your feet and finding your groove again to figure out moving forward, how do I stay whole? And the whole family is helped. And so I think Kitsap is on its way to doing great things because they've passed that 1%, 1/10 of 1% tax. And so we just need to do it here in Pierce and just keep moving forward with the greatness that we've already started. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. April will ask the next question.
Early learning is about 1% of the state's budget. In your opinion, is the state of Washington investing sufficiently in early childhood education?
I think we can do better, don't you? I think we can do better, but it's finding those dollars. First, we've got to protect what's already there, to not take away, but protect what's already there, especially going into this tough time of trying to figure out where all that money's coming from. How much is the federal government going to give us? If we can figure that out, then we can figure out how much we need to come up with and then find that progressive revenue that we need to find, switching that tax code upside down so the folks at the top, the wealthy folks, can pay their fair share, which then trickles down so that the folks at the lower end aren't paying a percentage more of their income towards taxes. So that's important, but we can do better. I think we can do better, and I think we can find it to do better.
Thank you. Thank you for hanging in there with us. We're going to enter into our last question that Joel will be asking.
Oh.
Well, I want to ask about revenue, and we're obviously revenue, taxes.
Oh, revenue. Oh,
yeah, because since you already had opened that door,
sure. Sure.
What I'm curious about is we're going to have a pretty significant budget deficit when the legislative session starts in January. How are you going to help close that deficit? Is it going to be all cuts? Is it a combination of cuts and revenue? Is it, and what types of revenue are you considering? It sounds like you're open to revenue, at least. I'm
open to revenue, progressive revenue. I'm open to definitely looking at the tax exemptions and loopholes that corporations and the 1% folks get. Are those still valid and useful today? And how can we, again, flip that tax code right side up is what I like to call it, because right now it's upside down. It is not right side up. So flipping that right side up and making sure that we've got everyone not only paying their fair share, but being okay with paying their fair share. I think we have a collective moral responsibility. That's my saying, on making sure we're taking care of as many folks as we can, especially post-pandemic. People are going to be hurting. Small businesses, folks who have lost their jobs, low wage earners, those restaurant workers who rely on tips and don't get that much of an hourly wage. They're going to be hurting. And so it's going to be up to us. Austerity does not work. We've seen that. We've seen that it costs more for us to get it back around than to do that. So let's not do that. Let's do it the right way this time. This is an opportunity for us to do it the right way. But to do it the right way, you need to have the right people in office. That's what I say, because if you have the right people in office, we are going to make sure we are trying to take care of as many people as possible. For myself, I want to look at that tax code and really dig into that tax code, and really make sure that these large corporations and these folks are not just getting away with paying $750 a year in taxes. We all know who paid that.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Well, thank you. Now, as we approach the 6:30 mark, I just want to quickly open up the floor to see if anybody has any follow-up questions to what has been said, and then we will allow Joy to share some closing remarks. So Joy, I guess I will invite you to begin your closing remarks, and we'll see if somebody comes up with something during that.
Okay. Well, my closing remarks will be, one, thank you for giving me this just time with you all. Great questions for me to really kind of dive into beyond just talking with you all. I talk to several of the candidates on a weekly basis. We have our check-ins with each other. And so this will be interesting conversation for me to have with them and for us to really think about. And for me to think about as I'm thinking about what bills I want to start putting through. I think you've given me one idea. And so I'm going to keep that to myself right now, though. But just remember, it's about getting the right people to Olympia November 3rd. And it's about making sure folks vote, making sure they get out their vote. I tell people on the phone all the time, yes, I want you to vote for me, but even if you don't vote for me, please just vote. Use your power and just vote. Lots of people worked hard and gave up a lot for people to be able to vote, especially women. And so I want them to have a voice, and the only way to have that is to use your power of the vote. And so getting the right people there in Olympia is going to be really important. I'm one of those right people. I think I believe that I am going to want to represent everybody, regardless of whether we agree or not. I always tell people, don't be a one-issue voter. We can disagree on one issue, but we've got 4 other ones that we all agree on. And it seems that way from the folks I'm talking to on the phone every day. We have more in common than not. And so I'm super excited about the possibility of just going to Olympia and making really good progress and putting our state back where it belongs, as far as small businesses, as far as workers, as far as parents and children. This is going to be an important year, and I want to be a part of that history making of doing what's right for people, not when it's fun or popular, but when it's the right thing to do. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's good. Thanks for joining.